everybody, welcome to the Joy of Being You. My name is Michelle, and here I talk about all things consciousness, manifestation, occult, esoteric, symbolic. And the goal of me just having this channel is to spread awareness of the power of manifestation through the way I see things after I sifted through all of the spiritual dogma that I think honestly is put on a lot of people when they think they're on some sort of romantic journey, or you need to heal to like get into union with this person, and you need to find your purpose to like figure out life and like clear all of your toxicity and like do all of these things. It's like the spiritual community really so much is so romanticized on you needing to heal something that is not inherently broken. They put the burden of making you think you are broken and not good enough because of, oh, your inner child is so sad and you know you have to go back to that point in time, and it just is such a romanticized concept of how to look at your life. And it doesn't really explain how manifestation works. It just basically implies you're wounded and just need help. And I don't really consent to that, because the more you project onto yourself, oh yeah, this happened to me when I was 10 and that happened to me when I was 15, and you know, oh, they said that thing that wasn't so nice and now I believe that, so I have to go and meditate for hours to like heal that child I was at that point in time. It puts a really, I don't know the exact word to say to like describe that, but it puts a really romanticized, poetic, wounded feeling around that concept. And I personally don't believe it helps people to understand how manifestation works, how to actually get out of their own trauma. And I'm not saying like trauma doesn't exist, but what I'm saying is when you identify with trauma, you keep recreating that. And the foundation of manifestation is, what do you think about life? And then you'll interact with it in the physical plane. So it lends a hand to the so above, so below aspect in Hermeticism, as well as on earth as it is in heaven. It's the same idea as what do you think up here, which is heaven or the so above, and then you'll interact with it in the physical plane, which is on earth or the so below. So when you see the correlation between that esoteric, I guess, conceptualization as well as religion, they're saying the same thing. It's no different than potato. And regardless of how deep you go into it, from my point of view, from how deep I went into it at least, it really just amounted to, what do you focus on? Your masculine nature is your conscious awareness. What do you currently think right now? I'm thinking of potatoes. That's my masculine right now, okay? What is my feminine in that state? My feminine in that state is my subconscious belief of potatoes. What do I believe of them? Do I or do I not like French fries? That is my feminine showing. The masculine and feminine nature, the way I see it, is just you using your thoughts, what you're currently thinking. You don't have a belief about them, they're just what they are. And your feminine is a reflection of that deep subconscious belief about that thing you're thinking. And that's it. So when I bring up the word love, that is your masculine. It is a thought. Now, what is your subconscious judgment of that? That is your feminine. How you unite the two is by controlling how you judge them. You think love. What is your subconscious belief about that? I don't think I deserve it. I think I'm on a twin flame journey. I think I'm tired of my karmic partners. Okay, that is what you're currently experiencing. That's your feminine state, and your masculine state was just observing what love is. You don't need to heal any of it. All you need to do is just change the way you're programmed, and then that will then change what you experience in the physical plane. So it's not about healing some arbitrary child that was hurt like 20 years ago about something like a divorce, or, you know, maybe sexual, emotional abuse. Like, those things are awful. And I do think that you need to, I do think that needs to be taken seriously and come to terms with and healed in its own way by either being forgiving or seeking stability emotionally and intellectually, and not taking it personally and knowing it's not your fault. Like, those things are very important. And I think taking away the victimhood of it and putting in empowerment is very important. But if you keep those trauma beliefs towards people, thinking people are just there to abuse me, relationships always fall apart because all I saw was divorce in my family, then that becomes your feminine nature. That becomes your subconscious, because your masculine, your thoughts, are now deep-seated programs that get birthed in your physical plane. Mary is a virgin because it means she's pure in her subconscious belief that she will birth regardless of what her logical, rational circumstances are, which is not having a man present to make a child with. And she does it. It's because when you have a pure belief, you don't need the mind. You just know who you are. You claim a state, and it births that as the physical expression, meaning Jesus. Jesus isn't real in my point of view. He's just an example of what you can create. Any child in scripture is just what you create through your imagination and your persistence in believing that thing. That's why they keep having so many freaking kids. It's not just because it was an old time period. It's because you keep birthing kids all the time in your physical reality too. But they're different things, whether it's an abusive partner, whether it's a new car, whether it's your dream job, whether it's having to pay a traffic ticket. All of those are your children. It just depends on what you think that day, how you feel that day, and how you keep feeding those energies for better or for worse, and then you interact with them. It's the story of creation. You're constantly creating. So with that being said, I like to water down the, I guess, spiritual community basically to, you need to heal what your innermost beliefs are, okay? That's the feminine. Those are what you take to be fact, okay? So let's say I can't heal my body is a fact. And if you keep that with you for a very long time, I guarantee doctors will not be able to tell you what's wrong with you for years on end. Because who did that happen to? For about 8 years. That was my feminine. That was my subconscious belief. Because I consciously chose to look at symptoms online about what certain foods do. I used to be an avid health nut, like psychotically so, like, you know, Dr. Mercola, Dr. Axe, Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Mindy Peltz, Barbara O'Neill. Like, I used to be like, if I'm not doing these things, I'm not healthy. And then I recognized, because I was so strict in the way I would perceive health, it actually made me sick, because I believed every study they would publish and talk about and take it personally. And it became my narrative. So then I had hormonal issues. I had digestive issues. My hair wasn't growing long. My skin wasn't as clear. And it became my child. It became my manifestations. You're born with an inherent birthright to create through thought and emotion and focused attention alone. You are meant to create. You're always creating. So when you recognize the way that you can harm yourself by making yourself ill, you can also heal yourself. And I have a little passage here, maybe like a quote as well as a small paragraph from the Neville Goddard Complete Collection book, as well as a story for you based on my own experiences with healing myself. So the thing I brought up with digestion in my hair, that was definitely a huge part of my life. But this story I want to tell you is about healing my meniscus after getting it ripped off the bone, to having that be my diagnosis, and then it shifting into me not needing surgery. And this was when I really, really, really was desperate to understand manifestation. So if you come across a lot of coaches, I find that you'll really see that they have this kind of like really dark place where they're just like, I need to change. I need to really like dial in on a new belief because I am in dire need of help. So there's a couple of people online that I like to watch, like Elmer O'Locker Jr. was in jail for 8 years. Taylor Tukes, I think, had health issues and now she's like a supermodel. Sammy Ingram had trouble with money. His name is like Neuro Knowledge. He had issues with money as well. Neville, he was a struggling artist and then became successful by becoming a teacher and the like. So it's everyone comes from their own area of lack in some way, whether it's their occupation, their health, their relationships, and they just need change now. And that's one of Neville's books. It's At Your Command. It's not, oh, I'll have it later. I'll have my dream job later. Or like, a relationship it would be nice now, but I'll have it later. It's like, no, command it. What do you want now? And claim it for yourself. And this is where I'm going to go into my story. So a couple years ago, I had issues with my knee, and I felt that it was like kind of pinching a little bit. And I noticed before it even got really bad, I would tell myself, I think I tore my meniscus. And I would think about that because in my intimate life, it was part of relationships that I had where people had that experience. So it was kind of in my brain as like a thing that was familiar, a thing that could be a potential threat, because it was just around me. So I like felt off one day or two, and I kept telling myself, like, I think I did something. I think I tweaked something. And eventually it got to the point where it was really hard to jump or do any kind of leg exercises. Fast forward, I went to a physical therapist, and I really trusted their judgment, and they diagnosed me with, things being okay. I did a couple of extension exercises. I did some strength exercises, and he's like, okay, well, if you just can't jump, then that means maybe there's something wrong with the ligament and there's just some inflammation. So just like relax for a little bit. And long story short, I did a couple of other activities, and eventually I felt really bad where there was nerve pain. And so I went to a specialist for the knee and did an MRI. She gave me a phone call saying that I had torn my meniscus and 15% was left on the bone. And at that point in time, I felt so traumatized because I was like, how? Given my health background of how much I focused on health and all of this stuff, I was like, what could I have possibly done wrong that made it tear? That sounds insane. But you're so asleep to your own bullshit that you forget you were telling yourself for like 2.5 months you think you tore something on and off. So of course it creates your reality. So I felt disheartened. I was so burnt out, crying. I hated myself very, very much. And it wasn't until I bought Neville's books, instead of listening to him, I started reading him. And I think when you read something, it takes applied focus. And when you're focused on something, it means you're giving it your attention. So when you're giving something your attention, you're very present. And when you're very present, it means you're very conscious of what's going on. So when you're very conscious, that means you're in your masculine. And when you want to believe something and change a belief, that is your feminine, your subconscious. So in came my attention on this book, which was my focus, which is my thoughts, which is my masculine. And I'm trying to reprogram my feminine to believe this more than I do my fear. So when I got the diagnosis, I had this book shipped to me a little bit afterwards and thought, I'm going to read this and something has to happen. I've been trying to study this for years. I never really had breakthroughs, but this is going to have to work. I don't know how. I'm at a wit's end. I don't need surgery. So I read a couple of passages here and basically I just told myself I don't need surgery. That night I cried outside and I just kind of had a prayer to whatever I believed God was at the time. And I was like, if there's any merit to manifestation, if there's any truth to this book, if there's any truth to any of it, then I do not need surgery. And I kind of left it up as an ultimatum in a way. It's just like, okay, if there's merit to this, then show me. And if there's not, then you're a fraud, God. And everything I've ever believed is bullshit. And I'm willing to put that on the table. Because it gets to a point where you're so burnt out of questioning how to do things right, how to set intentions, what affirmations, how often. It's nuts. So I just basically said, I don't care anymore. Either you show me you're right, or prove to me that I was right to think that you're a fraud. And I left it at that. So that night I went to sleep, was basically saying, if it's real, show me. And in the morning, I did another little intention. I said, I get the best news. I get the best news. I get the best news. And I filled myself with the feeling of getting best news. And I limp into the office, sitting in the waiting room. And I definitely was nervous. I definitely didn't know if I really trusted myself to achieve this. change in whatever it could have been. I didn't even know what I was expecting. I just told myself I get the best news, and I knew I didn't want surgery. So notice that even though there was panic and even though there was a little bit of fear, I still knew what I wanted. And it doesn't really matter what emotions you have to create something. It just matters to know what you want and to focus on it. So I was in the waiting room, and I was honestly just burned out. And I was like, I'm good with or without it. It is what it is. But ideally, I don't want this. And so I went into the room, and I kind of just hung out waiting for the doctor. And as I was sitting there, I just kept telling myself, I get the best news. And in comes the doctor, and she points at my x-ray or my MRI scan, puts it on the light box. And she's just like, I don't really know why you're here, because, this doesn't look so bad. And when she said that, my mind was completely blown. And I thought to myself, but your voicemail said I only had 15% hanging on to my bone. What do you mean? And I didn't know what was real and not real in that moment. I didn't know what was medical malpractice, meaning she read my scan wrong because she told me I actually needed help, and now she's telling me I'm not. I didn't know if it was medical mistreatment or if it was me setting an intention and it working. I was in between the realities of logic and belief, and I just was so confused. And she said, you have more than enough blood flow to your meniscus. I'm just gonna give you some painkillers. So don't even worry about it. Just take them. If you feel funny, just call me. But really, I think you'll be good in 2 weeks. And when I say that with all the truth in the world. I want everyone to believe that. I walked out of that room, and I was absolutely in awe, because that was the scariest thing I think I ever had to do. Meaning, I didn't want surgery so badly because it was such a threat to my identity of being an active person, of not wanting to go through the recovery, of not wanting the rest of my life to be having this injury hung over me to then dictate what I can and can't do in the future. I always want to be healthy. I always want my longevity. So to have that being threatened was terrifying. And when I heard her say those words, again, I was in shock. I walked out of there and was like, I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if I trust her, because her voicemail was very convincing. So when you see that, you see the polarity. The old version of you, which is doubting Thomas, doubting the creation that you actually can resurrect and be what it is you want, which is the parable and the allegory of doubting Thomas having to see Christ resurrect after the fact, not believing he could do it before the fact. Doubt has to see something for validation. Doubt just implies a mind that doesn't believe in intuition or a spirit. So when you have a lot of doubt, it's because you have a lot of judgment, you have a lot of thoughts. And that is the old version of you thinking a thing, trying to come back to doubt the new personality, the new person you're becoming, which is a healed person. I think there was also some woman that had a disease in scripture, and she's like, I'll be healed if I just touch Jesus's garment. And then she touched his garment and she was healed. It's not because it's Jesus or his garment. It's because of her conviction. Especially being a female, it's the feminine. It's the subconscious program being convinced of something, so it must come to pass. And I successfully had done that. But unfortunately, my masculine, my thoughts, my old thoughts, which is, I guess, a tainted feminine, chose to come back. And I doubted that I would be healthy. So I made an appointment with a surgeon, and I said, I want another professional opinion, because I do not trust what I had just created, what I just birthed, my manifestation in the physical plane. So I call this surgeon, get an appointment for the next day, because I'm terrified and my leg hurts pretty bad and I need to be able to walk for work. And I go in that next day and I do the same meditation and I meet myself where I'm at. And I tell myself, because I'm still doubting the other woman saying that I'm fine, I say, I get the best news from this surgeon. I get the best news from this surgeon. And the surgeon tells me that I did in fact tear my meniscus and that I do need surgery. However, it is the best injury somebody could get being in my position. So look at that. Look at that awakening experience. Looking back, I think it's very powerful to watch how your thoughts created that. You successfully manifested out of an issue. You do not need to know how. People heal themselves through cancer through meditation. From what I understand, a big part of cancer is that it's cells that isolate themselves and disfigure because they don't have a connection to the rest of the group, the other group of cells that they used to be connected to. And it's similar to humans. When we're not together in a community, we feel separated, we feel broken. So we ourselves become the cancer. We become depressed, we become negative, we become self-destructive. It's no different. What happens on a macro level, being a human body, happens on a micro level. If you isolate yourself as a physical being, your cells can also isolate themselves and cause physical damage, which will then cause these crazy diseases on top of, probably eating diseased and sickened food and things like that. But it depends on your level of awareness and how you think food will or will not affect you. Different people think different things, so they have different outcomes. I have a friend who has a freaking nuts metabolism, and he has eaten like shit for a long while and no problems. So like, I can't explain that. It's like, you don't have a high metabolism. Everybody has a metabolism. Scientifically speaking, what creates it to be higher or lower? Is it what you eat? I don't know. He eats like trash. So how do you explain that? It could just be his self-talk, because I did pull him aside once and ask him. And I said, have you ever thought yourself to ever be heavy or like not good looking? And he's like, no, not really, never, no. I've always been skinny. And it's like, look at how simple the conviction of those words are. Meanwhile, I had always had issues with my body weight and my image. So I had struggled significantly with health issues and like a changing body shape that felt like it was uncontrollable. But after having a balanced focus on how I perceive myself, I noticed that my body is in a way that I prefer and I really like. And that food doesn't have the impacts it did on me before, when it would actually poison me and give me allergies and make me feel incredibly uncomfortable and give me issues. So going back to my story of my meniscus diagnosis from both surgeon and specialist, they met me where I was at. The specialist is the one where I was completely delusional, completely surrendered. When you completely surrender, meaning you are so burned out and stop caring, I felt defeated. And that means you let go. It means you're good with or without. Ironically enough, that implies abundance. So when you're abundant, you're indifferent. And when you're indifferent, there's no resistance. And there's no resistance because there isn't lack. You do not need the diagnosis. You just don't fucking care anymore. And you're like, whatever it is, let it be. And it's ironic because even though you might say those words, whatever it is, I don't care anymore, it's the intention subconsciously. You already planted that seed. It's, I want to get better. So of course you have to get better. Of course you'll get that good news. And that's what happened to me. Complete burnout, then I got what I wanted. However, I had a lot of doubt, which is, again, doubting Thomas coming back and saying, I don't really know about that. That's not logical. That's not practical. And that's the mind. That's the masculine. Judging the feminine, judging the female, judging the subconscious. So the surgeon said, you're going to need surgery, but it's the best diagnosis you can get. And that was a perfect manifestation. I doubted. So I didn't think it would be perfect. I don't think I could get a healthy response from him. I felt like I needed surgery. So if you feel like you need something, everyone's a mirror, and they're going to project back to you exactly what you think you need, which is surgery. So I had to get surgery because that's where I was at mentally. That's what I could accept at the time, because I was a freaking health nut. And I really did not trust the medical system to the degree of saying, oh yeah, you're fine, just walk away. Because I've been burned in the past in my relationships where I saw that they were abused and not handled with respect. So I had my skepticism. But it was a huge critical point in my awakening. I was able to run 2 weeks earlier. I was able to walk 2 weeks earlier. I'm able to deadlift now and squat more than I ever could. And it's not because it's like, I don't know. I guess it taught me how to have better form and exercise better for sure with like stability muscles and things. But it's also, I watched how my thoughts created that tear and that surgery in the first place. So now what do I tell myself? I am strong as hell. Nothing can take me down. I am so powerful. My thoughts completely changed. I can run on my knee. I can jump. I never think about it anymore. I don't feel it anymore. Even though I had the rehab and the recovery and all that, it was fine. It was perfect. It was perfect for what it was. During my rehabilitation, I actually practiced this stuff, intention setting, and I saw myself getting better quicker. I saw myself having a physique I wanted, and now I'm there. So when you see that, when you see how powerful your mind is, you stop using it to destroy yourself. And that's what I think is a huge awakening to humanity. When they catch their negativity and see how they're creating hell for themselves, then they can see how they can create heaven just as easily, so long as they they change the way they judge things and the way they think. That's what the difference between heaven and hell is. It's choice. You get to choose what you want to see. It's perspective. So this is 26 minutes. I'm just going to read in this book. It's called Neville Goddard, The Complete Collection, if you want to check it out. I could link it in my description if you want to order it on Amazon, because it's a good book. Like, he breaks it down in a way that has Neville quoted, but also in like normal English. So it's not like old-timey and old school. But this is chapter 3, Desire, on page 285 in the hardcover version. So it says, human life is nothing more than the appeasement of hunger, and the infinite series of levels of awareness is the means to satisfy that hunger. So when you appease something, it basically means to like entertain it or to fulfill it. And if you want to satisfy that hunger, that means you have to do something to satisfy it. You have to do something to complete it. So if human life is nothing more than just having hunger to do things, and then you have to appease it, right? You have to fulfill it. That's why you're given a human body and a physical experience. You wouldn't have hunger if you weren't physical in nature. And it would be ironic for God to give you the fulfillment of hunger and the journey of hunger if you weren't meant to have it. Nothing's wrong with the material world. Like, that's where religion is so messed up. Why would God make you a human being, which, in case you didn't know, is material in nature? Why would he want that for you if you weren't meant to experience the physical plane? Like, it does not make sense. You're meant to enjoy the physical plane. You're meant to interact with it. You're meant to experience it, because that's how you get knowledge. Like, I don't know why we're here, but so long as we are here, you might as well enjoy it to your maximum potential, which comes with a focused mind and recognizing you can create the things you want to experience. Health is a desire, a hunger which can be appeased when the idea is formulated in the mind that I am healthy. Much like I told you with my knee, much like I will tell you in the future, and I have said in my other videos about my IBS and my hair falling out, my skin being dry for like 10 years. The same is true for wealth, peace, harmony, or fame. For all of these are states of awareness. Identify yourself with the state desired. Persist in this identification, and because you and God are one consciousness, what you are conscious of, you outpicture. So what you're conscious of is, what are you thinking that, what do you think you are? Do you think you're undesirable? Do you think you're ugly? Do you think you're healthy? Do you think you're successful? Do you think you're rich? Do you think you're poor? Do you think you're weak? Do you think you're strong? Like, really be honest with yourself. And that, you will see why your life is outpictured the way it is, because it's based on what you think. And the world doesn't want you thinking for yourself. They want you thinking what they want, because then you will outpicture their perspective of what reality should be. That's why you see war on TV. That's why you see divorce with all these stupid reality shows where everyone falls apart and honestly has an IQ of like 10. They're like, no one is speaking of intelligence, and there isn't any shows that make you feel great. A lot of movies are about like deceit in relationships and like violence and everything, and a lot of music is about sex, money, and rock and roll. And it's like you learn about politics, you learn about the inner workings of religious communities, and you see that a lot of them on the top have issues with that as well. It's very animalistic in nature. They can't control their desire and thirst for the physical plane. But understanding manifestation is controlling that thirst and desire because you know you create it. So you can keep creating it if you want. There isn't a lack of it. There's an overabundance if you just knew your own power of attention setting. Also in this book, it says, in the book of Revelations, we are told, I will give to every being according to his work. The only work you are called upon to do is work on yourself. Start this work by observing your reactions to life. Your reactions are based on your feminine nature, which is your subconscious beliefs. It's not some inner child. It's just, what are your programs? Your brain is a computer, and you've been programmed through repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, which are your reactions. If I pinch you and you say, ow, that really hurts, stop pinching me, and I keep doing it, you're gonna have a horrible feeling state towards me. So as soon as I come up to you and do this, you're immediately gonna have a reaction to go away, right? But if you didn't react to me doing that, chances are I would stop and go away. But it depends on you. How are you going to react to my instigation? Are you going to feed into it so I do it more to you? Or are you going to ignore it so it goes away? It's the same for a third party in a relationship with someone you love. Let's say you have an SP and they're dating somebody right now and you want them. It's ignore that girl, ignore that guy who's seeing your partner. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're actually disgusting. They're not together. Why would they be? I don't even know who they are. And then you start affirming for the positive that you two are together, and you will have to be together. The reason why that third party is there is because you believed in lack. You believed that they would leave. You believed that you didn't deserve. So of course you would have to create the other woman or the other man, like Florence Scovel Shinn says. So really, reality is based on thought and thought alone. And that's really all I have for today. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support me, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to my content if you find that it's helped you. I have merch from Etsy. I have merch from my clothing line as well for the joy of being you. Some cool scripture verses. And I also have in my Etsy shop greeting cards, stickers, and fun Life is Beautiful cardboard art. So if you want to support me, I'd really appreciate that. I'm working on some more pieces. And yeah. So that's all I have. Feel free to comment or message me about any questions you might have. I love to help people if I can. And until next time, take care.